The basic income illusion: why the real world runs on human hands. Chapter 1. What is basic income and what it isn't? Let's start with a clear definition, because this conversation goes nowhere without one. Basic income, often called Universal Basic Income (UBI), is a system in which the government pays a fixed sum of money to every single citizen, rich or poor, employed or unemployed, motivated or not. No questions asked, no conditions attached. This is called the universalist model. This is fundamentally different from selectivist welfare programs, which target people who are struggling financially. Basic income isn't a safety net for the few. It's a universal floor for everyone, and that means it must operate at the national level. Running a local pilot in one city or one region is, by definition, not basic income. Here's another thing that needs to be said clearly. Basic income experiments are not basic income. What researchers have actually studied are time-limited cash transfers, programs with a start date and an end date. Drawing sweeping conclusions about a permanent, nationwide basic income from these short-term trials is intellectually dishonest. The two things are simply not the same. Chapter 2. The hidden assumption no one talks about. So where does the idea of basic income actually come from? What's the worldview behind it? At its core, basic income rests on a very specific assumption: that human labor will eventually become unnecessary, that automation will take care of everything, and society will run itself. That's the premise. And if that premise were true, basic income might make sense. If robots and AI could grow our food, build our homes, care for our elderly, clean our streets, and deliver our packages, then, sure, we might not need people working full-time anymore. But here's the critical question. Is that world the one we're actually living in? The answer is a resounding no. Chapter 3. The robot that can't clean a toilet. Let's get concrete. Take one of the most common physical labor jobs in the world: cleaning a public restroom. Engineers have spent hundreds of millions of dollars developing advanced four-legged robots. These machines can navigate stairs, open doors, even dance. But give one a brush and tell it to scrub a toilet? You're looking at an extraordinarily expensive, slow, and mediocre result. One that costs far more than simply paying a human worker an hourly wage. And this isn't an edge case. It applies to elder care, where a human touch isn't just preferable, it's irreplaceable. It applies to construction, where conditions change every day and no two job sites are alike. It applies to delivery logistics, where a driver still has to physically carry a heavy box up 3 flights of stairs in the rain. Real automation is nowhere near ready to replace these jobs, and yet, proponents of basic income speak as if the robots are already here. Why? Chapter 4. The white-collar blind spot. The answer is surprisingly simple: confusion between the digital world and the physical world. Most vocal advocates of basic income are white-collar professionals, people who work in front of screens. They write documents, they analyze data, they manage teams over video calls. And lately, they've watched AI tools eat into those tasks at a remarkable pace. An AI can draft a report, summarize a meeting, or optimize a supply chain schedule. So when these people see AI advancing rapidly in their world, they make a logical but catastrophic error. They assume the entire world works the same way. It doesn't. The fact that a white-collar worker can do their job from a comfortable office is only possible because someone else is cleaning that building, repairing its plumbing, driving trucks to stock its cafeteria, and hauling away its trash. The physical world that sustains their comfortable digital lives is invisible to them. Not because it doesn't exist, but because modern convenience has hidden it from view. Think about it this way. You open an app, tap a button, and a package appears at your door the next morning. From your perspective, it's almost magical. But behind that tap, a real person drove a truck through the night, walked several miles around a warehouse, and carried your box up the front steps. The screen makes all of that invisible, And for too many basic income advocates, invisible means non-existent. Chapter 5. The Numbers Game. Why just pay everyone is more complicated than it sounds. Now, some supporters of basic income will say, fine, forget the robots. We can still afford to pay everyone a monthly stipend. It's a fiscal question, not a labor question. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. If a government can find the budget to pay each citizen, say, $500 or $1,000 a month, why not? Here's why not. Because money and supply are not the same thing. This is Economics 101, and it's worth stating plainly. Prices are determined by the relationship between supply and demand. If you flood the market with cash, which is what giving everyone a monthly payment amounts to, but you don't increase the actual supply of goods and services, prices rise. Inflation. Every time. But wait, wouldn't basic income cause supply to fall as well? Let's think about that. The entire stated purpose of basic income is to give people freedom. Freedom to stop doing jobs they hate, to retrain, to pursue art, to raise children, to volunteer. In other words, basic income is designed to reduce the amount of labor people perform. That's not a side effect. That's the goal. So if people work less, fewer goods and services get produced. Supply drops, but demand doesn't drop. Everyone still needs food, housing, healthcare, transportation. The result is straightforward. Prices go up. People's basic income payments get eaten alive by inflation. You have not freed anyone from financial anxiety. You have simply redistributed it. Chapter 6. The dangerous collapse no one is modeling. Here's the scenario that basic income advocates consistently fail to address. Imagine basic income is introduced tomorrow in a society where automation has not replaced essential physical labor, which is to say, our society, today. What happens first? The people most likely to reduce their working hours are those doing the most physically demanding, lowest paid jobs. Sanitation workers, care workers, construction laborers, long-haul drivers. These are the people who have the least financial cushion today. They are also the people whose labor holds society together most directly. With basic income in their pockets, many of them, completely rationally, will work less or walk away entirely. The result: garbage piles up on streets. Elderly people in care homes receive less attention. New housing developments stall. Supply chains fracture. This is not a thought experiment. This is the logical consequence of introducing basic income into a world where the robots haven't arrived yet. The financial math might look passable on a spreadsheet, but the physical reality of civilizational infrastructure is a different matter entirely. Chapter 7. From Soil to Shelf. The Unbroken Chain of Human Hands. Let's zoom out and look at something even more fundamental. Pick any object in your immediate surroundings. The shirt you're wearing, the food you had for breakfast this morning, the building you're sitting in right now. Ask yourself, is there a single physical product in your life that got from raw material to finished form without a human being touching it at some point? The answer is no, not one, not a single one. Consider clothing. An AI can design a beautiful pattern, but someone has to plant the cotton, harvest it by hand, refine the synthetic fibers, adjust the industrial sewing machines, pack the garments into boxes, load those boxes onto trucks, and arrange them on store shelves. At every single step, from soil to shelf, human hands are involved. Consider food. A smart farming algorithm can tell a farmer the optimal time to irrigate. But a person still drives the tractor before dawn, carefully hand-picks fruit to avoid bruising it, sorts it at midnight in a distribution center, and restocks the refrigerated shelves at your local grocery store. Consider your home. A computer-aided design program can generate a photorealistic 3D model of a building. But actual human beings, working in the cold, in the heat, in the rain, pour the concrete, bolt together the steel frame, wire the electrical systems, and carefully hang the drywall. From the first moment a raw material is touched to the last moment a product is handed to a consumer, the physical presence of human labor never disappears. Not for a single second. Chapter 8. When Symbols Replace Reality. So why do so many intelligent people fail to see this? There's a structural explanation. The professional world of white-collar workers is a world of symbols. Revenue figures, stock prices, analytics dashboards, lines of code. When you spend every day manipulating abstract representations of reality, it becomes increasingly easy to confuse the map for the territory. You start to believe that if you can optimize the numbers, you can optimize the world. If you can redistribute the code, you can redistribute prosperity. If AI can automate the spreadsheet, surely it can automate everything. This is a seductive illusion, and it's particularly dangerous when it shapes public policy. The person who has never personally cleaned a floor, laid a brick, or driven a delivery route in rush hour traffic is poorly equipped to make claims about when those jobs will become obsolete. Yet these are often the loudest voices in the basic income debate. Conclusion: digital is the accessory, physical is the foundation. Here's the clearest way to put all of this. You cannot eat a screen. You cannot wear a line of code. You cannot live inside a blockchain. No matter how sophisticated our technology becomes, human beings are physical creatures living in a physical world. We need food grown in soil, water purified through pipes, shelter built from concrete and steel, and care provided by warm human hands. White-collar work and information technology are enormously valuable, but they are the lubricant of civilization, not its engine. The engine has always been, and remains today, the essential workers. The farmers, the construction workers, the logistics drivers, the caregivers, the sanitation crews. Basic income, as a policy concept, is not inherently evil or stupid. In a world of true, comprehensive automation, it might even be necessary. But in this world, right now, today, implementing it without solving the supply-side labor problem first would not liberate people from financial anxiety. It would accelerate the physical collapse of the systems that keep us alive. Before we talk about what we can afford to pay people not to work, we need to have an honest conversation about what breaks when fewer people show up to do the work that matters most. The robots aren't here yet. Until they are, the world still runs on human hands.